What's up, y'all? I'm Gabe, and this is my review for Average Joe. And honestly, the name of this show fits it just perfectly. The show is just pretty much average, with a few slightly good things that they do that boost the score a little bit, so it's not just a straight up 5 out of 10. The best part of the show, though, is clearly Kathy and Leon. Their relationship with each other, their relationship with the other members of the friend group, and their personalities themselves are always what stands out between the dark and, just average characters in the show. They play off each other extremely well and genuinely feel like they fell in love with each other and have a bit of issues themselves that they need to deal with on their own. After watching Angie and Joe's relationship develop, I never really felt like they truly loved each other. The ending for them made sense and was another positive of the show, but the ride along to get there was extremely bumpy along the way. It never really felt like they loved each other, they were just going through the motions, is what it felt like. Throughout the show, I liked how they were solving essentially the puzzles and clues that Joe's father left behind to try and get his money stashed, but it felt so forced and easy to find. Like, of course, one of the next steps is leave essentially the hint to the Lamborghini in the dumb place that Joe would always run to as a child when his parents were arguing. Additionally, it just keeps getting so annoying the way that Jen kept arguing against her parents when they would say stuff like, Dimitri's a Russian spy, I only killed him in self-defense. And even with the massive amounts of evidence the show would present to us and Jen, she still somehow would say, oh, I'm in love with him, and she couldn't comprehend it, which just makes no sense. You found out that your boyfriend was trying to sleep with you just so he could steal your father's inheritance, and then you say, nah, I don't care, I was in love with him. That just makes no sense. On top of that, some of the arcs that the characters go through are very much hit or miss. For example, with Touch, it feels forced and they're like playing the drug addict character way too hard. With the detective, her arc with her mom feels so fake as she's been working on the case for 20 something years, and randomly in episode 6 they get into some sort of argument and she just gives up, and then at the very end in the finale she picks her back up because the case has finally been solved and now they can go on to live their regular life. It just felt so out of place and not like what would happen in real life. Adding on that, some other actions before the finale happen and it feels so forced that it was making me crazy. For example, when Angie gets hurt, she ends up going to the hospital and then she talks to a patient in the hospital. Now, after like 8 hours of conversation, there's like an assassin, a Russian assassin, that comes in to the hospital to try to kill her. And she somehow gets away with it, which I'll talk more about later, but even after she gets away with it, the dude comes in that she was talking to, and she's like, oh my god, please help me hide this body, which makes no sense that the dude would agree to do that. I don't even know if I would cover up a dead body for my family, and especially not for a random stranger that I just had some quote-unquote deep conversations with in a location that's easily found. That just makes no sense. However, once again, with Kathy and Leon, their arcs as they slowly start fixing their relationship issues feels real and is enjoyable to watch. On top of that, they're both extremely funny in the show, which does a really good job at helping in reducing the tension between other characters. The story is also very boring and basic, and the cinematography and editing is also very simple as well. I don't like the permanent dark tint that they apply throughout the show because it kind of makes the show seem bland and boring. If you're going to do something to apply a dark tint to make the show seem gritty and like slums type of location, at least contrast that with some very colorful aspects, like for example in episode 10 when they're going to the karaoke. Contrast it with that so that you get a better sense of the city and it makes the show much more appealing to the eyes. Now, with the villain Nikolai, he just felt so one-dimensional. All he cared about was his son and nothing else. He essentially felt like what would happen if you googled, give me a stock Russian villain, and then he popped up. Because the only difference that he had between other stock Russian villains is he added the occasional one-off conversations to add the slightest depth to his character. Now, the culmination of everything that the show had been trying to build was also just so bad overall. In episode 7, when everybody arrives to the house for their final siege or whatever, you're expecting it to be a huge crazy standoff, but almost everything that happens is just so coincidental and forced. What makes me the maddest is that only one person in the show has been seen to know how to actually fight. And yet, when all the other characters get into their respective battles, everybody suddenly starts winning. The only exceptions to this are Jen and Touch, because Jen obviously in the finale has that secret that she uses for leverage, where Touch just gets saved at the perfect moment, so I can excuse that. But with the other characters like Joe, their fight scenes are just extremely inconsistent. Whenever Joe wins fights, I'm so confused because at the very beginning, he sucked. And somehow the way he beat him was like crazy luck. But I can excuse that because it's the very beginning of the episode, and it was also like 2v2, so you could see, and they knew the environment, so they knew what was gonna happen and how to use like secret weapons and whatnot. But as they get to the finale and they're fighting more and more Russian mafia guys, it seems that they're just stupider, slower, and weaker than him, and he just beats them with ease. There are also flashbacks in the last two episodes that were just completely irrelevant to the story, and they're just there what feels like to pad time to the episode. The final conclusions for each character were also so bad, with the exceptions of Joe. With Kathy and Leon, it makes no sense because in their final ride together, she meets with an undercover cop who's acting as a drug dealer and who then starts shooting at them for no reason. That's just simply not what an undercover cop would do. With Touch's ending, it just makes no sense why he did what he did. Some random lady essentially convinces him to do it because of the guilt with what happened with his girlfriend and his daughter like 10 years earlier. And it just makes no sense because he went through his whole life not doing it, and then all of a sudden some random old lady convinces him just because she was like, you should do it. And with Irina and Nikolai, Irina for some reason flips sides and decides to help Joe, and then after Joe kills Nikolai, she somehow finds her daughter back with no leads. That just makes that whole chain of events just made no sense. And with Nikolai, he has like the lamest death ever. You would think with how much he got beat as a child, he would at least know how to put up a fight. But Joe, back to what I mentioned earlier, just somehow beats him handedly. It just makes no sense. This whole series was good intentions, but bad executions. A lot of the show was just very inconsistent and never really hammered home the points that it was trying to make. I feel like it just over-exaggerated some bad aspects like the mystery aspect, but never really put more emphasis into their relationships. That's why I just can't rate this show that highly. Now, that's my review for Average Joe. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Bye guys.